photo gallery with CSS Grid, and today we are taking it to the next level. We are building a complete website layout using CSS Grid areas. This is where Grid really shows its power over traditional layout methods. Right? Today you will learn how to create professional website structures with header, sidebar, main content, and footer sections that automatically adapt to different screen sizes. We'll cover grid template areas, named grid lines, and how to create complex layouts that will be nearly impossible with Flexbox alone. By the end of this tutorial, you'll understand how modern websites are structured and be able to build any layout you can imagine. So without wasting much time, let's get started. Okay, in today's video, we are building a modern blog or a portfolio website layout. Think of sites like Medium or personal developer portfolios. Clean, professional, and perfectly structured, right? So I have my folder here called grid block with two files inside of it, which is index.html and the style.css. Okay, so right now they are all empty. For the HTML, I'm not going to write it actually. I'm just going to paste that in. Okay, so let's go over the HTML. So as you can see, I have my body here with a class of site container, right? This will be our main grid container. I also have header. So as you can see, I also have main. I also have aside for the sidebar. I also have footer, right? This will become our grid areas. Okay. So for the contents, let me open it in full so that you see it correctly. So inside of our body, we have a header, the class of site header, and then this logo, and then the navigation links, right? And for the main, we have an article with the class of featured post inside the main, right? We also have content grid which holds some posts. So I have like 3 posts with a title and some paragraph inside. Okay, and I also have my sidebar here. So it contains 3 widgets, right? I also have my footer with quick links and socials, right? So I think that's it for the HTML. And the reason why I'm not going to type the HTML is I don't want the video to be very long, okay? I don't want us to waste a lot of time on writing HTML. So let's get started in our CSS. Okay, let me start with basic reset and styles. So I'm going to 0 the margin and the padding and the inbox sizing border box. Okay, now let's open this with a live server. Okay, so for the body, let me select body, and then I'm going to give it a font family of, actually I'm going to use Inter. Okay, so I'm going to use Inter for the font. So Inter like this. Let me close this tab here. And I also want to use some background color here. Okay. Okay, can you see that? So I'm going to give it a mean height of 100 VH. Okay, so for the links, let's say text decoration none, so to remove the underline decoration. Okay, also going to give it a color of, let's say, color of E5 3E3E. Okay, and I'm also going to add some smooth transition, so I'm going to say color 0.2 seconds ease. Okay, I also want that when a user hover over it, I want the color to be this. Okay, so now when I hover over it, as you can see, it's working correctly. Okay, now I used a red color scheme right instead of blue. Then accent color is, as you can see, is E5 3E3E with a darker red C5 3030 for hover states. Okay, now here is where the magic happens. I need to create our main grid. Okay, I need to create our main grid container. First, I'll target the side container class and turn it into a grid. So the body with the class of side container, right? Side container, and then we display it to grid. Okay, now this turns our body into a grid container and all direct children becomes grid items, right? Now comes the most powerful part. I will define the grid template areas. This lets me visually map out my entire layout. Okay, so I'm going to grid template areas, not known. So let's say first part I want header. So I want it to go all the way, right? I also want the second one to be sidebar, main and main, right? And then the last one to be folder. Okay, now this is incredible. Each quoted string is a row, each word is a column. So header means header spans all the three columns. Sidebar main means sidebar takes one column and main takes two, right? Next, I need to define the column sizes. Okay, so we define the column sizes by using the grid template columns, which you have already learned in the previous video. So grid template columns, I'm going to, for the header, I'm going to give it 150 pixels, right? And then one FR. Okay, so this creates three columns. The sidebar gets a fixed 250 pixel width, and the two main columns, they split the remaining space equally with 1 FR each. Now I will set the row sizes. Okay, so grid template rows, I'm going to give it for the first one auto, and then 1 FR, and then auto, right? Auto for the first and last rows means header and footer size to their content, right? 1 FR for the middle row means it takes all remaining vertical space. Now let me add some spacing between the grid areas. Okay, so grid gap, I'm going to give it a grid gap of 20 pixels, right? This adds consistent space. Okay, Now let me center the layout and add some constraints. So let's say max width of 1400 pixels and then margin of 0 order, right? And also minimum height of 100 view height, so the 100 viewport height, right? Perfect. Our main grid layout structure is complete. Now I need to assign each section to its grid area. Let me start with the header. So it has a class of site header, I think. Let me check. Yeah, site header. So let's say grid area. So grid area, this one, say header. Okay, can you see that? I assign this to the header area we defined, right? Now this grid area connects this element to the header area in our template. This is how CSS Grid knows where to place it. Now let me add some visual styling. Okay, let me add some linear gradient background color. So let's say 135 degrees, right? So I'm going to add this color, okay, 0%, and then 100%. Okay, there we go. Now let me make the text to be white. Okay, and also let me give it some padding, 1 rem and 2 rem left and right. Okay, also let me give it a border radius of, let's say, 10 pixels, and I'm going to display them to flex because it's a navbar. Justify content space between. Okay, let me add some box shadow around it. So for the first one, 0 S, and then RGBA 000 for 0.1 for the alpha. Okay, now I used a dark gradient background and making it a flexbox internally for the logo and navigation layout, right? Now for the main content area, let's say, so this one here, the site main, let's select it, site main, and then grid area main. Okay, now our layout is starting to take shape seriously, right? Our layout is starting to take some shape. We are not done yet, right? So let's say, actually let me add some grid inside of it. I'm going to make it a grid container too, right? So let's say grid template rows, order, and then 1 FR and some gap, and then padding of 1 rem. Now this creates 2 rows, auto for the featured post, 1 FR for the content below the grid, right? So 1 FR for the content grid. Now for the sidebar, let's select think sidebar, right? Yeah, so let's give it a grid area of sidebar. Okay, this places it in the sidebar column of our layout, right? Let's add some padding around it. So padding 1 rem, right? And finally, let's work on the footer. So side footer, grid area, footer. Okay, that's cool. Okay, now everything is starting to take shape, as you can see, right? Now this makes the footer span the full width at the bottom of our layout, right? Let's add some color. I want it to match the header, so I'm just going to copy this one right here. Now let me just copy this code here, except for the flexbox. Okay, now it matches the header's dark gradient style, right? Now let me style the navigation. I'll make the navigation list horizontal. So let's select our main nav. Okay, so this one right here, this main nav. Okay, so let's say main navigation UL. Let's display it to flex, right? Let's give it a gap of 2 rem. Okay, let's select the links inside of it. I'm going to give it a color of okay. And I'm also going to give it this thing. So font weight of 500, right? And also I want some padding around it, so I want 0.5 rem and also 1 rem for the left and right. Okay, actually I need to remove this. Oh, the thing is, let me just expand this, okay, so that we see better. Okay, now let me remove the list style here. Okay, there we go. I'm also going to add some border radius around this link. And then some smooth transitions, right? Now when a user hovers it, I want this color. So background color, $255. 255 and then 0.1, right? Okay, can you see that it's working perfectly? Okay, now what I need is also I want to make the text to be white, right? Now for the featured post, let me select the featured post. So this one right here, this one. So this one right here, welcome to Comsiriga IT Solutions, blah blah blah. Okay, so let's give it a background of white, and then padding of 2 rem, border radius of 12 pixels, and some shadow around it too. So the box shadow I want 0 pixel, 4 pixel, 20 pixels, RGBA 0.8. Okay, I think that's too much, but let me just leave it like that. Okay, I'm also going to add a border of 1 pixel solid, so E2E8F0, right? Now let's select the read more btn, so this link here, so this one, let me just copy it here, and then so for this link I'm going to give it a display of inline block, right? And then background of E5 3E3E, and then color of white, and padding 0.75 rem, not m. For the left and right I want 1.5 rem. Okay, also I want some rounded corners around it, so I'm going to give it a border radius of 6 pixels, yeah, and also font weight of 600, transition 0.2 seconds is, right? Now when a user hovers it, okay, so the background should be I want should be this one, and then transform translate y. Suppose you already know what this will do, right? And then some box shadow, right? 229 62 62, and then 0.3. Okay, now look at what happens when I hover over this. Oops, text is not displaying actually, so I want the color to be white still. Okay, there you go. Right, I'm using our red color scheme for the call to action button. For the content grid, I'll make it responsive. Okay, so this content grid below, the one that hold the postcards, so these three, basically a heading with single paragraph each, right? So let's say content grid, in that is the class. Yeah, so content grid, display grid, grid template columns, auto fit. I suppose you already know what auto fit is. And then min max, so the minimum size of each of them should be 280 pixels, and then 1 FR, right? Can you see that? Okay, I also need some gap, so 1.5 frame. Okay, now auto fit with min max creates responsive cards that adapt to the available space, right? In case you don't know what it does. Now let me style the postcards. Select each postcard. They all have the same class. Give it a background of white. Give it some padding of 1.5 frame. Border radius of 10 pixels, right? And also we need some box shadow, so 0, 2 pixels, 15 pixels, RGBA 0.6. Okay, sorry, I made a mistake here. Actually, it's not template rows. I'm trying to create columns, not rows. Okay, there you go. So can you see how they turned out to be? I actually made a mistake. Okay, now let's get back to our code. And now I'm going to add a border of 1 pixel solid 2EF80. So this one. Okay, and also let me add some transition. Should only be applied the transform 0.2 seconds is. Notice I use 0.2 almost for every place I use, because everything needs consistency. Okay, so if you choose to use 0.3, then you stick to 0.3 for the most part, right? So here I'm using 0.2 is for the transform, and for the box shadow too, I need to make it, let's say for the box shadow too, let me make it to be 0.2 seconds is. Okay, now when a user hovers them, postcards hover, so when a user hovers them, I want them to move up a little bit for, like, let's say translate y 3 pixels. Okay, I also want to change the box shadow to 0, 8 pixels, 25 pixels, and then RGBA 0.12. Okay, now let's check it out and see. Okay, can you see that? Can you see the effects? Okay, now let's style the sidebar widgets. Okay, so select the widget class like this, give it a background of white, padding of 1.5 rem, margin bottom of 1.5 rem, border radius 10 pixels. Okay, and let's say okay, I'm also going to add some box shadow. So let's say 0, 2 pixels, 15 pixels, RGBA 0.6. Okay, and then let's add some border around it. Okay, so these are the widgets, so these two, right? I think let me add list style of none. Oh, actually it's not there. I think it's a container, it's inside the UL, right? But don't worry for now. Select the, we'll come to it. For now, let's select the H3 inside of them. So this one, recent posts and categories, right? So this one's recent post, categories, and the this thing about me here. Okay, so for the H3, let's give it some color. Yeah, I'm going to use this. Also give it a border bottom of 2 pixels, 2 pixels solid. Let's say E5 3E3E. Okay, let me give it a padding bottom of 0.5 rem. Okay, and also margin bottom of 1 rem. Now I used our red accent color for the widget heading on the lines, right? Now I need to make this work on different screen sizes. For tablets, I'll change the grid layout. Okay, but for before that, let me remove those. So let's say widget and then UL. Let's say list style of no. Okay, there we go. So now let me add some media queries. Okay, so let's say add media max width 768 pixels. Okay, let's select the site container. Now I need to change the grid template areas, right, for tablet layout. So all we need to do is, let's say grid template areas, right? Let's say header, okay. And for the second one, main, and the third one should be sidebar, 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 right? And the fourth one should be footer and footer. Now this text the sidebar below the main content instead of beside it, right? I will also change the column structure. So let's say grid template columns, so let's say grid template columns 2 times 1FR, right? So 2 equal columns for the header and footer rows. Okay, let's add some gap. Let's say gap 15 pixels and padding 15 pixels. Okay, now let's check that out and see. So I'm going to inspect it. Okay, can you see that it's already working actually? So on tablets, this is the display. What the hell is that? Let me select 75 or maybe 50. I don't know why is that, but as you can see, when it reaches a 768 pixel breakpoint, it's breaking, right? Okay, actually let me show it to you like this. Okay, so when I minimize the web browser like this, as you can see, they have all breaking down, right? So they all stacked on top of each other. So as you can see, it's already responsive from now. So I added auto fit for these 3 columns, right? Can you see how they turned out? It's really cool, right? Now let's add another media query below this for mobile phones, max width of 480 pixels, right? Let's select side container. I'll change to a single column grid now. Okay, so header, main, sidebar, and then footer, right? Now let me add grid template columns. I'm going to leave just one column, right? So grid template columns 1FR, right? So just one column taking the full width, right? Let me add some gap 10 pixels and padding of 10 pixels, right? So let's check that out and see. Actually, let me just use the inbuilt this thing. So I'm going to use this live preview. So there is an extension called live preview inside VS Code. So I'm going to use it. Okay, Let me allow it to load. Okay, so this is our live server here, right? Can I say that? A live preview, sorry. So I think this is much better, right? So you don't have to inspect and do stuff like that. So this is the mobile view, right? So this is tablet view, I think, right? So they're all stacking on top of each other, and this is mobile view. So they are all in one single column for now, right? For mobile devices, they will all be stacked on one single column, and that is responsive forever. Now let me add some. I want to make the shader responsive. Right now it's the one that is breaking our layout, so making this horizontal scroll bar below. So I don't want it like this. Okay, so let's add some styles. So I think from here, let's say site header, let's say flex direction column. Okay, gap of 1 rem, and then uh, let's say text align center. Okay, so yeah, okay, at least it's now responsive, right? So without this flex direction column, you can see how it is. But there is a better way of making responsive navigational menus. We will come to that in JavaScript, right? But for now, we will just be using flex direction column to make our responsive navigations. Okay, and for this one, sorry, let's say main nav ul, right? So main nav ul. I also want the flex direction to be column. Okay, so actually I want this because I want it to be responsive, right? But this is too stressful, I think, because using JavaScript, you might have done it a better way, right? Now let's adjust the content grid small. Let's say content, actually let me add this one on the mobile view, content grid. So grid template columns 1fr, right? So it should be single column for mobile. And there we have it. We have built a complete professional website layout using CSS Grid areas only, right? So as you can see, it's really responsive. So from 768 pixels and upwards, this is how the layout will be. And when it hits this breakpoint, as you can see for these elements here, so the auto fit is working, right? The auto fit is working. they stack on top of each other first. Then when they go when they go less than 768 pixels, you see they are all stacking on top of each other, right? And when they go to the mobile view like this, as you can see, everything is now stacked, right? So this is really responsive now. So as you can see, there is no need for horizontal navigation bar now, right? Now let's review what we accomplished. We used grid template areas, right, to visually define our entire layout structure. We really did complex multi-area layouts with header, sidebar, main, and footer, right? A responsive design also that completely restructures on different screen sizes. We also used nested grids, right? So for the content grid, for the posts and others, right? Like I told you, CSS Grid is really powerful actually, okay? And the power of CSS Grid template areas is incredible. We can completely restructure our layout just by changing the template areas in our media queries. No repositioning elements or complex calculations needed. This approach, I think, makes layouts incredibly maintainable. You can see exactly how your page is structured just by reading the grid template areas property, right? So next week, we are diving into CSS animations and transitions, okay? Keep experimenting with different area configurations. Try moving the sidebar to the right or creating a 3-column layout. CSS Grid makes it all possible, right? I hope you enjoy watching this video. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next tutorial.